That's one thing that I'm hoping that my kids learn, being a leader within your own family is where you start. Then you could be a leader with everything else.
A podcast hosted by Jody Tree, Joe on the Mic, Leader Talk, tackles various leadership strategies that cover self-development, self-leadership, including spiritual and physical health of leaders. This podcast will feature guests ranging from military leaders, thought leaders, health and nutrition leaders, spiritual leaders, nonprofit leaders, and many more. Welcome, guys, again to the show. This is Joe on the Mic Leader Talk, and we're on episode 32. So awesome. We've been going along, having some great leaders come in here and talk to us about what they're doing in the world today. We have another great leader with us today, Audrey Trujillo. And I'm just going to give a brief introduction for her. Audrey Trujillo is the organizer and founder of the movement #New Mexico Return, that held 3 huge movements of revival, worship, and prayer. Other events included the most recent. It was called a Worship Without Limits with the worship leader Phil Renner, hopefully I pronounced that right, leading and organizing these events to unite our churches. Is a calling that was placed on her heart as a child and came to her in a dream when she was about 8 years old. Hopefully we can get into that story. Born and raised in New Mexico, Audrey has 3 siblings, a twin sister, 2 younger brothers. The eldest sibling of 3 by 3 minutes. By 3 minutes, that's what it says. The eldest sibling by 3 minutes. Y'all want a race. She is married now 20 years. Congratulations to her husband, Jerome, with 3 children, 2 sons, 18 and 17 years old, and a daughter of 11 years old, right? Audrey loves being a wife and a mother. Welcome, Audrey. I appreciate you coming on. And I want our audience to know a little bit about you. You're an inspiration. I've read your story. I've talked to your brother, and he talks so highly of you. And I was like, you know what? We need to have her on because she is a leader making a difference in the world. But if you can let us know a little bit of something about how did you get into this position of being a leader and organizing these events? And can you give us a good synopsis of that?
Sure. I always say it was by God's grace because, before I met my husband, I went to school, I was the first in my family actually to go to college. And I got my 2 bachelors, one in criminology and one in Spanish. And then I went on for my master's in justice administration, which is a political administration degree. And then I met my husband skiing and we ended up, we dated for about a year. So I had already done all my schooling and we decided to get married. And I came from a very traditional home. My mom stayed home with us. We had a good sized family. And we just believed in the family unit and having a mom at home, and we felt that was very important in our family when we started deciding to have a child, which my first son came about maybe about a year and a half from the time we got married. And I just couldn't see myself sending him to a daycare and having someone else raise my child. And even though I had all these inspirations to go and work and use my degrees, I felt my decision to be a stay-at-home mom was the best decision I ever made. And till this day, my kids are already going to be graduating. My oldest is already 18, graduates this year, and the next one, they're 18 months apart, and he graduates the next year. So 2 of my boys are going to be out the door, going to college and hopefully going to college and doing the right thing and, making good careers for themselves and being an asset to society. But I kind of started off with the PTA, getting involved with my kids' school. I figured, we have to be a part of it as parents. I hear so many people complaining about how bad public school is and all the downfalls of the teachers, blaming the poor teachers. And as parents, we have a responsibility. And I felt that very strongly. And I thought, I'm not going to be one that complains. I'm going to be part of the solution. So I got very involved with, just showing up to PTA meetings, going to our just community events. And then I decided to run for the president, PTA president. And I actually pulled in my husband. I made him become the treasurer. So it was a family event, but we really helped a lot of families. We brought in a lot of money through fundraising and events and stuff like that and organizing to do the things that the schools didn't have the money for, and that was, having buses to take our kids on field trips and, being able to give our teachers some supplemental money for things that they were lacking in the classrooms that they didn't have. And just little things, that we were able to afford to do for the families and for our teachers and for our school, which actually helped all of our kids to have a really nice time while they're in school. And that's how it started. It's just basically organizing events, the Harvest Festival, our just different events that we had there. And I got to kind of learn to be a leader. And it was just basically I think I was always a leader, being the eldest of my family. But so I was naturally a born leader, I think. But the thing is, actually dealing with other people and adults, I find, it's really hard to deal with your own family, but when you're dealing with other people's families and an adult, it takes a different type of discipline and a different type of leadership. And I got to learn a lot from that, positive and negative, So that's where it started. And I started reaching out to even like the community, things that we would get involved with, elections and things that got more political, I think. Just finding out what legislation was being passed that was not going to be kind of focused on the family and focused on the best things for us as Americans. There was a lot of infringements on our Constitution, on our religious liberties and stuff that were being put through the legislature. And I was like, again, I didn't want to be a complainer. I thought, you know what? You have to be part of the solution. Let's just put it that way. So I ran for office. I ran for House of Representatives, District 23, which was my district. And I didn't win. It was my first time running, but I ran. So I was really proud, because it takes a lot to run. I mean, it takes a lot for your family if you put yourself out there. And it was very interesting. And I learned a lot. And I got a lot got to meet a lot of very interesting people that are still my friends today. And I think that's what kind of led us to I was doing rallies, I was making sure we had huge rallies up at the Capitol. And this was during when President Trump was running. So like I said, it started off kind of politically and it kind of grew. And I thought, you know what, we can do these big rallies politically, but where are the rallies for our Christianity? Our Christian churches are being attacked right now. We have our liberties are being attacked. This governor that we have in New Mexico, she had us down to 25% congregation. And it's like, when in the world has churches been shut down, for a pandemic because as we're seeing now, it's like all of a sudden we have a switch of hands as Biden's our president now and everything's starting to open up, but yet the numbers never changed. So it's really interesting, but that's pretty much how it started. And I just love, being part of those type of movements, especially when it comes to our Christianity and standing up for what's right. Again, with the legislation also that is coming down the pipes with our legislation here. We are, unfortunately, a late-term abortion state. And people from other countries, I didn't know if you knew that, come to our state to have late-term abortions. So it's not only the people in our state, but they come from all over. That's something that has been, it's legal here, So we had a bill that just came out. It's HB 140. And that bill is the last thing that we've been fighting against. And what it was doing is, now that our president put in some conservative Supreme Court justices, the left, which I call them leftists, the Democrats, they are worried about Roe versus Wade being overturned. So in our blue states, which New Mexico is a blue state, we have an actual old bill that actually talks about, basically it gives protections to parents, to doctors, to nurses, and has a moral clause in there. Well, they want to take that out and they want to just make sure it's eliminated. So that way, if Roe versus Wade does get overturned, that old law will not be in effect, which is right now, that's what would be put in place of Roe versus Wade. And so that's what we've been fighting now. And like I said, it's just a good versus evil. I tell my husband every day, this is a battle between good versus evil. And I believe that's why God has put me in the place he has to be a leader and, bring awareness, especially to our people, of what is really going down.
Oh, you know what? Thank you for your bravery and stepping out, because you know what? It takes it. I know there's fear. There's still fear, even though you step out and do something courageous like you did. And thank you for doing that. And that's what I want people in the audience to realize, is that you went from being a mom, raising your kids, but you knew you had a purpose. And I'm trying to summarize so everybody can, because like we can listen to the story, but you had a lot of good nuggets in your story, and I want people to see this. All right, you went to college, but you had a deep feeling of tradition to raise your children, which is super awesome. And to me, the super women of the world are our mothers, because our mothers are raising. You're literally in the home. The mom at home is not a place relegated to insignificance. It is the most important position, I believe, in the home, because you're raising the next generation of leaders, and you're in a position of great authority. And so you took that very seriously. I mean, you saw it. And a lot of people think, and like you said, I want my career. Career is good, everything else like that. But the most significant place in my eyes that I've seen was always the mother, because the mom, what does it say? The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world.
Right.
And there's nothing insignificant about that. But you know what? And I want people to see this too. But you had a dream, you had a calling.
Yes.
And you got resourceful. You said, well, hey, I can go into PTA. I can become a part of the board. I can become the president within the organization. And you didn't let that, you were still being the mom, but you were still moving forward with your dreams that God put in your heart. And sometimes we forget that just because we're in a certain position as a leader of our home, in our business, or in a position at work, what can you do in that position? God still gives us resources. We just got to be able and have our mind open to see that way that we can go to still fulfill what he wants us to do and be in our position that we're in. So you are a mom and you were a leader. I mean, you're a leader regardless, because you're a mom.
Right. Thank
but
you.
You got resourceful and say, look, I could still be effective, but let me be effective in other ways as well, and still be a part of my children's life. So I commend you on that. That is super awesome.
Thank you.
All right, folks, time for a sponsor break. Hey guys, real quick, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain real quick. It's free. Did you hear what I said? It's free to make your podcast. They have creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast. They also have free music that you can use. Not to mention, they will distribute your podcast to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts for you. All right. And you can also make money from the podcast with minimum listenership. Okay. They have everything that you need. Look, download the app, Anchor, like the anchor on a boat. And the website is anchor.fm. Anchor.fm. Get it. What are you waiting for? Start your podcast now. Do it. Anchor.fm, or download it on the app. Talk to you later, guys. All right, back to our episode. But when you saw that you needed to participate more, was there like a certain point or a pivot point or like an aha moment that said, you know what, I need to jump in here. I need to jump into the fray. Was there a little share you can do with that?
Absolutely. When I started seeing my kids growing up, and they're going to be in the workforce, they're going to be out there in the real world. And I thought, what world are we leaving these kids with? What opportunities are we leaving these kids with? And I looked and I'm like, there's not that much.
Hmm.
Do we want our kids to stay in New Mexico, in the state that, they're killing jobs left and right now with this oil, and I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are shut down for good.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, we need to change, the outlook. We need to change what is happening in legislature. We need to change the leadership up there, because they're not looking in a godly scope, is what the way I saw it. And I feel like being, a Christian is looked down as. In New Mexico, we've got this very leftist progressive governance now in that's in power. And they look down on Christians. They look down on morals. They look down on everything that's good in the world. And I don't want that for my family. I want my kids to be proud, proud Americans, proud Christians, be able to speak about God openly and not be shunned because they are Christians. I want them to be able to believe in the sanctity of life and not feel bad because it's a woman's choice. Well, we weren't brought up that way, and our morals and our values that come from, I mean, generations. My parents, we were brought up Catholic in a Catholic family, which most northern New Mexico families are. And even the Catholic Church has changed so much. They've become this progressive church that we don't even recognize. And they've left their congregation basically. And now we as adults and actually seeing what's really happening, I don't practice Catholicism because I just feel like it was not spirit fed. I believe that we need to really get down deep into the Bible. We got to know what God really said, and we got to question everything. And that's how I want my kids to grow up. They need to question government. They need to question all these things that are happening. And now with technology, like we said, I think it's the root of all evil, but technology is it could be very helpful. You can get your word out there if it's the right and important things, but it also can be very detrimental. And we're seeing a lot of that happening, and it's a sad fact. But if you have strong roots, which I mean family based, you have everybody, like most families that succeed, it's because the mom and dad succeeded. We came from a generation where you don't give up on your family. You don't just throw it away, because we keep it and we try to work at it. And my parents, they're still together, and they're already going on their 50th anniversary.
Hey.
My great grandparents were married 65 years. We don't come from a generation that gives up. You don't just marry somebody and then get tired of them and throw them out and find yourself a new one. You can't, you need to fix what's broken and work at that.
Yeah, you don't trade it in. So
no, and most people do. They just give up, and it's not flowing their way, so they just give up, and they don't realize the detrimental damage they do to their families. Your kids, they've lost that belief in the family when you've actually divorced. And I know there's situations that people have to, because maybe there's types of abuse or things like that, and that's different. But now it's like for any reason, we just have unreconcilable differences and we just change. It's just crazy. But that's one thing that I'm hoping that my kids learn. Being a leader within your own family is where you start. Then you could be a leader with everything else. My oldest boy, he wants to be an orthopedic surgeon.
Oh wow!
And it's a lot of years of school. And I told him, I go, well, you're smart. He's over a 4.2 student. He's really focused and organized and everything. And I said, you can do it. There's no thing that can say that you can't do it. But you think about it with the stigma against Christians and everything else. You have to see that those are the things that are going to be either it's going to be a positive thing or it's going to be a negative thing. And I just don't want him to be. I want him to be proud of who they are.
Man, that's so awesome. And I say, and I want to say this. I'm not trying to puff you up or anything, but you know what? You've shown them the example, and that's what leaders do. You're a leader in the home, you and your husband, and you show them like, look, yeah, even though your run for a political office didn't turn out the way you wanted to, but you got a lot of votes.
Right.
I looked at the votes and I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
she did super awesome for her first time running, and that is no small feat. You
Mhm.
know? So they see an example through you of how, hey, you know what? If you have a dream to go for something, go for it.
Right.
And I like to said, like what you said, you know, you ran, even if you fell, you learned from it. You
Mhm.
know, and that is the best way to demonstrate to our next generation that just because you fail at something once doesn't necessarily mean that you don't do it again. It just means you need to learn from it, hone your craft, hone your skill.
I was going to say, and you grow, you grow. There's certain things that I was definitely afraid of speaking in front of people because I mean, it takes a lot. You see these people, they're like, oh gosh, what if I mess up, And it just takes practice. It's getting out there. And like I said, I've grown so much by running for office. I grew in my political speaking and my just being a person, not being afraid to say what I believe. It was a huge growing opportunity for me. So
Mhm.
it was great.
So, and out of doing that, stepping out
Mhm.
and going into that political arena. Well, first going into the PTA, going into
Mhm.
that system, becoming president there, and then going on to being political office. I mean, what would be, you mentioned speaking in front of people, but what would be some of the, I guess, the lessons learned that you can share with the audience about taking that role, you know, just going from
Mhm.
that step to another?
I think, a lot of times you have to be true to yourself in any leadership position. You can't be a flip-flopper, is what I call it.
Yes.
You have to definitely have very strong values and who you are. Not to say that you can't reach across the aisle and listen to other people's ideas, but who you are is going to reflect whether they take you seriously or not. If you don't even believe in yourself, no one's going to take you serious.
Wow.
So, on certain things I stand very strongly on. And like I said, I'm a listener before speaking. I like to listen to people, and I definitely like to hear other ideas because I don't claim to know everything. None of us do. We can learn from each other. And a lot of what I've seen in the political fields, which probably is the reason why I really don't like politics, is the fact that it's so fake.
Mm.
People create this facade of what they want, but yet these people are not really true to what their mission is. They just say and do whatever they want for votes. And that's not me. I stand on what I believe in, and I stand on the things that I think are very important and that are going to be detrimental to our future generations. And I'm not going to compromise. So in order to really play the game, I think in the political field, you have to compromise more than you would want to. And, some people are willing to do that. And those are the ones that really actually ended up winning because
Mm.
they were to compromise their values, and which is really sad.
Mm. 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 Mm.
Then you get weak leadership.
Yes, yes. And so when I like this topic because when you were faced with compromise, let's just say somebody
Mhm.
said, "Hey, look, if you stop talking about this so much, we might support you. We might, I'm just saying, because it comes up.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
politics is everywhere, whether people believe it or not. Politics is in business. There's politics, in employment and everything else like that. So, I mean, what was, I guess, one thing that helped you stay true to your beliefs when you were faced
I
with that?
think my relationship with God, and the fact that one of the biggest topic was the sanctity of life. A lot of people that wouldn't vote for me was because of the fact that I'm a pro-life. I will not compromise on that. I think that our taxpayer money should not be given to these people to have abortions.
Mm.
I think if they're going to choose to do that, it needs to happen, and they need to pay for it. But don't bring me in and get my money and use that for that. That's something I do not believe in. That was one of the things that they would, they're like, oh, well, don't say that you're pro-life. You just, basically try to sugarcoat it where it's like that and the Second Amendment. I mean, I'm a big time advocate for Second Amendment rights. I believe we have every right to protect ourselves. That's our amendment, and also our First Amendment. We should be able to go to church, and assemble when we're petitioning our government. Those are things that I will not compromise on. And a lot of even on our conservative side, the Republican Party, they kind of wanted to reach and get those leftist Democrat votes, and they were willing to, compromise in those things. And I couldn't. One thing I wasn't very, I found it very hard was the immigration issues. I believe I love immigrants. They come here and they give a lot to our country. And a lot of us were immigrants. But I still believe that we need to have borders. We need to have laws, and they need to respect our laws. And that was another issue that was really hard, because being a border state, New Mexico, we have a lot of illegal immigration that comes through here. And with that comes drugs. There comes, I talked to a lot of parents that lost their family members, through drunk driving or different things. And their family would still probably be here if those people were not here illegally. So it's just those kind of issues that were really hard, because I was just like, I just cannot compromise on those kind of things. And I think the people that did compromise, they were able to garnish those type of votes that, that they could get, that I couldn't get because I wouldn't compromise. So politics is nasty, to say the least.
Yeah. And I commend you for sticking to your principles, because we need more leaders to do that. And it goes back to, would you rather be authentic or would you rather be fake? And it's better always to be authentic in our values and what we believe in, because even the Word of God says that.
Yeah.
The Word of God tells us to have our yes be yes and our no be no. So
you can't ride that fence.
No.
At least I couldn't.
No.
And you're right about being authentic. You're very right about that. And like I said, it's nice to speak to people that are authentic and you can believe what they're saying. And even when you speak in front of people, I mean, some people come off and it's like, okay, they went to school for grammar and they went to school for public speaking and all this stuff. You can tell because it just doesn't come out very authentic at all. And they almost sound like they're selling you something. And,
yep.
And that's not the type of people I want in leadership. I want somebody that, has a family who's struggled and lost their businesses and are willing, they're going to fight for you. They're not going to get paid out by lobbyists or different things like that happen. And the money is not the root of everything, So to me, it's like a leadership will not compromise on their values. And I believe, just being persevering and just being who you are, that's the strongest trait. And to me, even if you lose, at least you have your dignity. You're not losing your dignity. And I would have rather lost with my dignity than to have won, compromising and basically throwing away my morals and what I believe just to have a place in office.
Wow. That is a big statement. and it's true. When we see that too many times, we've seen that in a couple of past presidents where they said everything right that people wanted to hear. And we did the opposite. When they get into office, it's like, what just happened? I mean, I'm not going to say any names, but people can draw their own conclusions. Right. But we're talking about leadership, and I appreciate that, because right here, Audrey is showing us how to be authentically a leader. And sometimes being an authentic leader is sometimes not popular, But we always hear we hear it in the media and everything else. That, oh, we just want to have somebody who's authentic, be real, and whatever. You always hear those those terms being said in social media and on the news. But in reality, if that was the case, people would have voted differently.
Right.
You know, and that's
Exactly.
just reality. If you were truly wanted somebody who was authentic and someone who was real, someone who actually spoke the same language, not
Mm-hmm.
when they were in front of one group of people they said one thing and then another group of people they said another, and it
Mm-hmm.
conflicted, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. But
Right.
that's politics, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I appreciate it. And now, for do you have any next steps that are going on? Is there any other events that you might have going on in the future that people can to learn about from you?
Yeah, we have a few events that are coming up. You know, we have small events, rallies that are coming up against these bills that are being placed up at the Capitol here in Santa Fe. We also have a big event that's going to be happening up in March with Paul Renner again, who's going to come down. Our Capitol was completely surrounded by gates. They closed us all out, just like they did in Washington. So it's crazy, you know. You just look at this place and it looks like a war zone. You have National Guard, you have state police, and they're just surrounding the building. And it's like, this is the people's house. Our taxpayer money pays for this place. And yet you have shut out the citizens, and for no reason, only because of what happened up at the Capitol, which didn't happen at our Capitol, that happened up in Washington, you know. And the sad thing is that we used to do we were doing the Jericho marches, and we had groups of people doing them every single day. And I think honestly, because it's so evil over there and all this evilness that's surrounding the decisions that are being made up there,
Mm,
I think that is why they put up those gates, because they didn't like the fact that we were praying on the leadership, on the building, where these decisions were being made.
mm.
And we decided, you know what, we'll park ourselves in front of the in front of the gates, and include all our police officers. The last time we had an event, we actually had the police officers come and pray with us.
Mm.
So, you know,
That's
so
cool.
I think, you know, you just have to go out of your comfort zone, and that's what leadership does. It takes you out of your comfort zone. And even though a lot of people are kind of like, oh man, I don't know if I want to go because, you know, there's all these cops and all this stuff going on, you know, you just got to show up and do it. And then people start looking, you know, people definitely have that sheeple effect. They see one person lead and then they all start following, you know. And I think those are the leaders that we need, that are going to be, you know, placing their foot in front of the other and leading with, you know, a strong chest and arms back to create a more strong unity for the people, you know, where they can say, okay, well, that person's doing it. She's a girl, you know. You know, she's not afraid. You know, she has a family and she's speaking up. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, that's super awesome. And
mhm.
I guess I'll include your link later on, so if people want to reach out to you.
Okay.
Do you want them to go to your Facebook page, your, I guess I don't know if it would be called your business page or your personal page?
They can find me on Facebook at Audrey Trujillo. That's an easy one. And then we also have NewMexicoReturn.com, and that's
Okay.
our actual page. And we have events that we post up there. We have past events that we've done. We've been doing a lot. It just like kind of grew, and it was really amazing to see so many people that were just waiting for someone to just do something like this in New
Mm,
Mexico, especially. And like I said, when I was about 8 years old, I like to come bring you that little story back. But I had this dream, you know, and it was this dream that I didn't understand at that time. At 8 years old, you're just kind of like, well, that was weird. Where's that place, you know? And it was a dream that I was at the Capitol. And I don't know if you know what the Santa Fe Capitol looks like. It's a big, round, huge building. And I had this dream that we were out there holding hands around the building, marching around, and it came to pass. You know, when we had
wow.
the New Mexico return, we actually had that. We had over 1,000 some people come together, and I mean congregations from all over, different pastors, different priests. I mean, we had the Catholics, we had the Jewish, we had every denomination you could think of, and they all came together in one place, and we all celebrated. We
Wow.
celebrated and we prayed together, and it was so beautiful. It was amazing. My brother was like, wow, I can't believe you did this. You know, he was like in shock. I think I was in shock. I was just like, wow, this came together. I was just like, it was just so amazing. It was unbelievable.
Oh man,
But
that's so awesome. And you know what? And there's more ahead. There's more
mhm,
ahead.
most
And
definitely.
yeah. So guys and gals, hey, when you have a dream about something in life, don't discount it, because you never know when you step out in faith, step out in leadership like Audrey did, you never know what's going to happen. And if you step out in faith, you might be afraid, well, will people follow me? I don't know. This might be bigger than myself. You know what? But if God puts that in your heart, God will bring the provision. He'll bring the
Mm-hmm.
people that you need to help you out along the way. And Audrey is a prime example of that. She stepped out, and look, people came and saw her vision as well for the betterment of her state that she lives in, betterment for her family. You never know what's going to happen when you step out in faith. And Audrey, is there any like last words that you want to give to our younger men and women out there that want to be future leaders and future entrepreneurs? Is there anything you want to give to them real quick?
Absolutely. Just don't give up on your dreams, and you stand for who you are, be proud of who you are, and never make anybody feel like you're less, because, the person that God made you is unique. And I believe all of us have a purpose, and just seek your purpose. You need to love what you're doing to really be effective. And when you find that, there's no limits to what you can do. We can't be driven by fear. That's one other thing that I think a lot of people need to understand with the stuff that's happening now in today's society with the COVID and everything else. We can't live in fear. God is not of fear. And I believe wholeheartedly that no matter how bad things are, God has his purpose and he has a reason for everything. And I think he knows when we were born, he knows when we're going to die. So no kind of, preventative things are going to help us. We'll figure out something that we think is going to help us, and it turns out to be totally different. I don't know if you're aware, we lost our younger brother, and it wasn't through COVID or anything, and he was just taken from us. He was healthy and everything, and like I said, he lived every light. Every day of his life, he lived it like it was his last day, and that's what we all need to do, because it could be. We could be here today, and tomorrow we'll be like, okay, well, God is ready for us. But so don't live in fear, see your family members, make sure that if you feel like you want to make that call, because that's the thing that I think is most important. And we need to keep our families close.
Yeah, and my condolences to you. I don't want to mention it without without
Oh
talking
yeah,
about
no.
it. But yeah, your brother told me about that, and but how, yeah, I don't want to go deep into that because I don't want to get
Right.
too emotional, because I lost some family members as well, and
Yeah.
and it wasn't because of COVID.
Mm-mm.
It was just things that happened in life. One was cancer, other was sickness, and we did on my wife's side, someone passed away from COVID, but they passed away in Mexico.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, we do have to live our lives the way God wants us to live our lives, to the fullest
Right.
potential, because he wants us to have life and have it more abundantly, and not to be living in fear. Because if we live in fear, then we might not be as effective as we can be. It doesn't mean that we don't take precautions, but we need to be
Right.
proactive in putting out what he wants us to put out, going out and doing what he wants us to do to be effective leaders. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
if you were to live in fear, you wouldn't have done what you did.
Right.
To run for
And we
political
wouldn't have
office.
had these, and we wouldn't have had all these big rallies that brought people together.
Mm-hmm.
If we would have gone by the rules of what our governor said, stay home, stay away, and basically lock yourselves in your homes. We didn't do that. We never locked ourselves in our homes. People wore masks if they were, worried or their health compromised. We washed our hands. We always had, sanitizer, whatever. But we never stopped believing in God, and we never stopped praying in unison with, our Lord Jesus Christ, because in reality, he's the only one that can make the rules here. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
And even though these legislatures think that they have all this power, they don't.
Yeah, ultimately it's his power. He's going to make it happen whether we want to or not.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Are we going to be a part of the ride, or are we not going to be a part of the ride? So I'd rather be a part of the ride. So
absolutely. Same here. God bless you. Amen.
Amen. So, hey, guys, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. I certainly enjoyed the episode. Hopefully you guys took some notes, got encouragement, and we're going to put links so you can find out more about what Audrey is doing in New Mexico. And I think it'll encourage you too. If you have a burning desire to do something where you're at, do it. And that's what Audrey's leading us in leadership. Don't be afraid to step out. Don't think that you're limited in your position, because you can do great things. What it says, all things. We can do all things in Christ Jesus.
Amen.
And it doesn't mean some things. It means all things according to his purpose and his will. So, all right, guys. God bless you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Joe on the Mic is providing this podcast as an informational platform regarding leadership topics, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or a recommendation by Joe on the Mic or its representatives. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by Joe on the Mic employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the view of the podcast or any of its officials. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us.